One of the main topics that's very important in leadership and management is learning how to build teams and communication and the types of communication. And I'm not just talking about therapeutic communication that we've learned through through all of your courses, but I'm talking about communication in the workforce. One of the things that we think of a team, we usually like, for it to work out smoothly and effectively. And so you might want to think back about a team that you've worked on and why did it work, and then think back about a team that didn't work and why not. Also, when we think about teams, we also think about groups. So a group is usually a number of people who assemble around some kind of unifying purpose or relationship, such as you have your PTA in your schools, or you have the students who belong to the Student Nurses Association, or you as students belonging to the School of Nursing. When you have a team, this group has a higher degree of interdependence on one another and the focus on specific goals and objectives. So this is include ongoing positive relationships and a supportive environment, such as your clinical teams that you work with. So looking at in your textbook, there's an assessment exercise about teams, and if you want to, that would be something interesting just to look at, but it's a team assessment exercise. So some of the foundations that we use for creating teams is commitment, communication, and being connected. So the commitment is usually that passion for a project or a mission of the team that allows the members to do whatever it takes to be able to meet that objective. This can be seen in what is usually achieved in JACO accreditations or magnet designation, or a School of Nursing going for their national accreditation. Or it could be your teams that you work on for your group projects. You have a certain goal, an objective that you want to reach at the end, which would be a good grade in a presentation. Communication is also very important, as I just said earlier, verbal and nonverbal interaction that occurs in the team. And your nonverbal is about 55% of your communication. It says a lot because it says more than what you're saying. So those nonverbals are huge. These interactions always should be respectful and honest in the workplace. Members should listen actively to thoughts and feelings of other team members. Disagreements are handled in a way that honors each person and looks in a way to make sure it's a win-win solution. So it's knowing how to speak about something to someone without causing ill will or harm to someone's feelings, and making sure that you speak up instead of letting something fester and become a huge issue. Another thing is connectedness, and this is more of the positive supports in those relationships. This is going to facilitate good, clear, and effective communication among the members. Some of the things that we want to think about communicating effectively is, and I've got other slides to go through each one of these, is stress, your stress response model, your barriers, your pitfalls, and all your guidelines. So we're going to take a little bit of a look at each of these. I did want to mention stress real quick in your stress pitfalls, because sometimes when we're under stress, our communication skills decrease. We may say something very quickly or sharply to someone that we really did not mean for that to happen. So we have to look at ourselves and our anxiety levels and saying, why did I respond that way? What's happening? Am I saying really what I want to say, or I'm just showing my frustration? Another type of thing that we look at is some of our barriers to communication. Are there distractors that are going on? Is there a lot of background noise, or something that's in the background that's distracting our perception to be able to really listen to what someone has to say? Is it inadequate knowledge? So if someone's communicating something and we don't have that knowledge base, there's going to be a communication barrier because you have no idea. Example, when my husband's talking about finance and numbers and percentages and investments, there's a bit of a communication barrier there because I really don't understand that part of what he does, and so it's very hard for us sometimes to carry on a conversation because I'm constantly looking at him and he can see the nonverbal, and he says, "You don't understand what I'm saying." I said, "No, you're gonna have to back up." Another one is poor planning. Making sure that you're organized, you know what you want to say, and that something just doesn't come off spontaneous, because sometimes if it's spontaneous, you're not going to say really what you want to or communicate what you want to communicate. So making sure that you are prepared. There are differences in perceptions, and that's one of the biggest things that sometimes we have to agree to disagree. Each person can state their side and what they see, and then you come together in the middle. But, knowing that, okay, I don't completely agree with you and you don't completely agree with me, but there's some meeting in the middle where we can work together. Emotions and personality. I think this is a lot of where we see a lot of different things that come out, and sometimes we don't realize that emotions and personalities can clash. And it can really, really break down that communication. And we have to keep our emotions out of it, especially in the workplace. My feelings were hurt, those types of things. That needs to stay out of it. You're here to work and work productively in a state of business. It's not about friends and my emotions and feelings and those types of things. Of course, you shouldn't be stepped on either. You shouldn't be. You need to speak up. I'm not saying let someone just beat you down. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm saying don't let emotions overshadow and override your communication. And personalities. Sometimes personalities just clash, and it's unrelated to even the message of what's happening, but you have that clash of personalities, or you just don't like someone's personality. You tend to not want to really listen, and you kind of tune them out, and that communication becomes broken. The next thing we have is communication pitfalls, and I have a few listed here on these two slides, but they have a great box on page 328 that talks about these. And some of these you saw also in your non-therapeutic communications skills. But look at box 18-1 on page 328, and it explains each of these. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but please look them up in your textbook. Another thing that we look at, some key concepts, is conflict resolution, and this is huge. Many times leaders and managers have to work through conflicts and try to help with the resolution. You may be a charge nurse who's dealing with it, or you may be a nurse dealing between two nurses or a CNA or someone along the way. So conflict resolution, there are some steps that we look at, and lots of times we want to look at what was the trigger, what started it. Look at the background between these two individuals. Is this something that just happened, or has this been festering, or is this, where it was bound to happen? So what was the trigger for this, and what is their history? Also to look at, are they people who constantly need to work together, depend on each other, or do they not? So what is going on here at the time? And then you want to look at the issues, the goals, and any kind of resources that you can use to help to solve this situation. And then look and see if they've ever tried to, what other conflict resolutions have been used in the past. But the biggest thing that you have to do with conflict is you have to come back and evaluate. Come back and check and see how's it going. Check with the other employees. What have they noticed? Does it seem that things have gotten better? Because if not, you're not really solving it if you poo-poo it away and say, hey, y'all need to stop it and go on. You're not solving what that main issue is. So again, another thing is that every team does have a purpose, and you want to make sure everyone is involved and working together. And it helps to motivate all the members of a team. So looking at another concept is the willingness to cooperate. Everyone needs to do their part. If not, it's not going to have a good outcome. So you want to make sure you bring everyone in and make sure they're willing to give in to that whatever that commitment is, and everyone is going to cooperate. So that's using those last two together. So some of your guidelines for effective communication, those are on box 18.3, and we can discuss some of those also in class. So in this slide is looking at different effective and ineffective attributes to teams, looking at the environment, discussion, objectives, listening, ability to handle conflict, decision-making, criticism, leadership, assignments, feelings, and self-regulation. So we're going to talk about some of these in class. So if you want to kind of look that over and come up with some ideas about teams that you've been on, and how it worked and how it did not work. What made your team effective and what made it ineffective. I like to start here just looking at qualities of a team player, and lists 17 characteristics, and all of those are also listed in your textbook and with a description of each. So you might want to look those over. This slide talks about how to create synergy, how to be effective, and where everyone buys in, and you have that where everyone wants to pitch in and work even harder and stronger. It's that good positive feeling to make sure it's, help to create that synergy. You want to make sure that there's a clear purpose to this team. Everyone's using that good active listening. They're being compassionate to other one's ideas, telling the truth, and not okay and then going and talking negatively behind someone's back or to a group, and then you create that negative atmosphere. So telling the truth and being very flexible. Everyone's different, and we have to learn not to be our type A personalities and it's my way or nobody else's way. We have to give and take, and so we become very flexible in our working environment. And then committing to a resolution, whatever that resolution is set up to be, commit to it and say, this is how we're going to resolve, or this is where our team will come to an end. But making sure that everyone agrees to it. Because remember, everyone has a different perspective, so it's coming together and committing to the purpose of that team. The bummer, what kills synergy. Sometimes you have someone who thinks that they are the expert, so they are the know-it-all. They think they have it all figured out, and kind of takes over the group, and then no one else wants to contribute. You also have someone who doesn't speak up. They may know a good deal about something, but they don't share their information or their knowledge with the rest of the group. They just kind of sit there quietly, and so that breaks it down. And then you have someone who may be the loner, and this is someone who doesn't even want to be a team player. They don't like to be on a team. They like to work by themselves, and they don't like to cooperate with the others. They just kind of let me do my own thing and then get out of here kind of personality. Here's a list of benefits to effective teams. And again, notice again, they bring in that communication. And so you want that good constructive, active listening, being a team player, being honest, watching your tone of voice and your voice quality, words that you stress, and stopping and thinking before you speak, as sometimes an issue too with members on a team. So if there's conflict, sometimes, lots of times conflict is good and it helps to get things done. But there's also constructive conflict and destructive conflict, which we'll talk about in class. And lastly, the role of the leader in a team. And your good team leaders are going to understand that to be a good leader, you also need to have followers, and working together and pulling out the qualities of each other, making sure that we're all on the same page, that everyone understands the purpose of the team and how they can contribute, and sometimes putting in some rules and boundaries with that team and how they're going to progress along the way. All right, that's all I have, and again, as I said, we will have a guest speaker this week in class as well. Thank you.